So the next thing I want to talk about is what's commonly referred to as a plaintiff's mill. And what a plaintiff's mill is nothing more than a business model. And it's a business model that generally should be avoided. So how do you identify what is a plaintiff's mill? A plaintiff's mill is this. It's an attorney's office that brings in as many cases as they can. They don't care what type of case it is, as long as it's a personal injury case. They'll take everything from a parking lot accident to somebody getting run over by an 18-wheeler on I-75. They take it all, absolutely take it all. What they do is they get it in and not always, but generally do the bare minimum on those cases. They will coordinate through a case manager, to make sure that the client goes to treatment. They'll order the bills and records. They will maybe take some photographs. They won't interview anybody. In fact, the plaintiff themselves may never even get talked to other than the fact that they signed a piece of paper. They'll take those cases. They'll get them to the point where treatment is done. They'll send a demand to the insurance company. They'll get a response back. They'll call the client. This is probably the second time the client's ever spoken to the attorney's office. And they'll say, hey, XYZ insurance company offered this much money on your case. Do you want to take it, yes or no? And there'll be very little information most likely offered as to why that insurance company offered what they did. But they just put the client in a position to say, hey, this is how much is going to go in your pocket. Do you want it, yes or no? And at that point, if the client says yes, they'll order checks and they'll cut checks and they'll do the things they do. The client will get their money. Again, not knowing if they got a good deal or not knowing if they were paid fairly, just knowing that that's how much money they're going to get. And they may even present it to them as, hey, this is all you're going to get. If the client says no, one or two things will happen. Either the mill firm will disengage from the client, meaning cut them loose, or they'll refer the client to another law firm. They'll tell them that, hey, we're referring you to this law firm over here for purposes of litigation. And then the client goes to another lawyer. Hopefully that lawyer that they've been referred to will actually litigate the case, actually look at the case, and work it up. A mill firm, that's all they can do. The reason that's all they can do is because they have so many cases and so few lawyers. In Albany, Georgia, I'm not going to name names, but I can think of at least 5 local mill firms. In Albany, Georgia, I can think of at least 3 statewide mill firms that use this business model. And the reason they use this business model is because they make a ton of money doing it. They make a ton of money doing it. I mean, where else can you make that kind of money signing pieces of paper and cashing checks? That's why you have venture capitalists getting into plaintiff's practice. I received a call last week offering me 7 figures if they wanted to finance my law firm to set up this type of practice. Clearly, I'm not going into debt like that. It's just not happening, and I'm not partnering with some venture capitalist from India. But nothing against venture capitalists from India, just I don't know them. But it happens all the time because they make so much money. They make money because they're not doing anything. I mean, that's how they're making their money. They're not doing anything. I mean, they have these secretaries, paralegals, case managers who are basically filling out a spreadsheet. Client went to this doctor's office, this doctor's office, this doctor's office, this doctor's office, and they have checks down the side. Do we have their bills and records? And they request those things and they get them. Once they get a full list saying, hey, we have all the bills and records, they put a cover letter on top of all that paper, send it to the insurance company, and in 30 days, they have an offer. Assuming the client takes that initial offer, they'll have checks within 10 days. And 7 days later, they're cashing checks or depositing checks. I mean, it's an absolute cash cow. But The client's not getting any justice. It's a perversion. It's an absolute perversion of the profession. And it's brought about almost, I can't say it's 100% because of, but it's a lot because of advertising. Because clients don't know they deserve better. Clients don't know there's anything else out there. Avoid the mill firms. Best way to identify a mill firm is to, again, ask about case count, ask about lawyers, number of lawyers they have, how many cases they have, ask about the number of staff they have. If they have 3 paralegals for every attorney or 3 support staff for every attorney, that's a pretty good telltale sign it's a mill firm. Ask about the number of cases they actually have in litigation as compared to the numbers that they don't have, that are not in litigation. I would say, I can't say with any certainty, but I would imagine that 20 to 25% of your cases should go into litigation. And make sure that they're filing those lawsuits in-house themselves, not through somebody else. I'll tell you a funny story. When I first came to Albany, I rented space from what I later learned was a mill operation. I'm sitting up there in my office, and this lawyer comes up the steps, and he says, "Hey, Beau, I want you to file a lawsuit on this case. I'm going to refer it to you." All right, yeah, that sounds good, no problem. And the lawyer says, "But here's what I want you to do. I want you to put my name on the pleadings too, so that we're both attorney of record." No problem, absolutely. So I get to drafting up the complaint, drafting up all the things that we need. But before you can file something or put someone's name on an attorney's name on a lawsuit or any legal document for that matter, you have to put their bar number. It's pretty basic. So I go downstairs and I ask this lawyer, "Hey, I've got this all drafted up, but I need your bar number." Absolute deer in headlights. This guy had been practicing 30 plus years, deer in headlights. He says, "I'll have to get back to you on that." Comes back 3 days later. His paralegal has retrieved his bar number, and we put it on the pleadings. Right there for me, the writing was on the wall. 2 months later, I got out of that place. Not where I wanted to be. Anyways, beware of the mill operations. Make sure that your attorney at least knows the litigation process, regularly engages in the litigation process, and when necessary, tries cases. And when I say when necessary, when the attorney's actually done all the stuff he or she's supposed to do and the other side is being unreasonable. Again, so many cases go to trial simply because of lack of workup, lack of doing what they're supposed to do prior to trial. And it does no good for the client. It does absolutely no good for the client. Yeah, just to wrap this up, it gets back to the central theme, which I hope everything in this episode was pointed to. Do not be persuaded by marketing. Hire an attorney. Don't hire a marketing company or a marketing firm. Attorneys are spending thousands. At the local level, they're spending thousands of dollars on marketing. I'm spending thousands of dollars on marketing. But I like to think that the reason that I'm doing that is not simply to market to you. First off, is to let you know who the heck I am. Because if everyone's marketing and I'm not, the odds of you finding me are pretty slim. Secondly, it's my hope to actually educate a little bit, give you some things to think about so that you can parse through the marketing and make an educated decision about which direction you want to go. So it all goes back to the central theme. Don't be persuaded by marketing. Do your due diligence. Attorneys have dozens, if not hundreds of cases at any given time. You've got one, hopefully one. I hope you don't have multiple personal injury cases going on at any given point in time, but in most circumstances, you'll have one. You'd be surprised what some people have going on, but you'll have one. It's important that you get it right. It's important that you make an educated decision. It's important that you hire someone who can actually help you and wants to help you as opposed to just push you through the system like it's some kind of processing plant. And I think that plaintiff's practice has become a processing plant simply because lawyers are allowed to advertise. They're allowed to take in as much oxygen as they can.